Well, first off, Rickell, welcome to Sunday Brunch. We know it's your first time as a guest on our show. We hope it's not the last. So, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to your current work on advancing racial justice and women's rights issues.
So my name is Rickell Howard Smith. I'm president and CEO of YWCA Greater Cincinnati. Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I've been doing this work for my entire career. An attorney by training. I spent most of my career as a civil rights lawyer, advancing justice in a variety of ways, but mostly in representing women and children. And when I came into this role at YWCA, it was a perfect fit. I no longer wanted to practice in court, had hit my wall when it came to that. And I have a family myself, so nonprofit leadership at a place with a bold mission. Our mission is to eliminate racism and empower women. So it was so aligned with everything that I had done throughout my entire career, but also my personal passion. So that's what brought me here to YWCA.
That's amazing. Thank you. And we're going to get right into it. I mean, it's really been a hard week and even a hard month. We've seen multiple cases where Black women have been killed by intimate partners or family members. When you look at what is happening right now, what stands out to you most? Help us make sense of what we can't make sense of.
Well, first, although the circumstances are tragic, there are so many fatalities due to domestic violence that don't get reported. And so I am happy that folks are continuing to have the conversation and bring awareness so that it is not an issue that remains in the shadows. The more that you name what is happening, the better positioned you are to develop solutions and actually protect women.
No, thank you for that. And just the latest incident is the Fairfax case in Virginia with Justin Fairfax, the former lieutenant governor, and his wife Serena Fairfax. And we've seen a situation involving a public prominent official, a pending divorce, and ultimately ending, unfortunately, in deadly violence inside the home. What does a case like this reveal about how domestic violence can exist, even in households that appear to be stable or successful from the outside?
Well, it reveals almost every element that we see in domestic violence cases here in Cincinnati. One, it is an issue that can impact you no matter what your race, age, zip code, socioeconomic status, right? Because it's called intimate partner violence for a reason. It is something that is not open in the public. The other piece of it is that people who do harm, abusers, and survivors go through a lot to keep these things quiet because of the shame aligned with it. And then finally, a lot of folks don't know what resources are out there. And, I'm not saying that that is particularly the case in this circumstance, but if we know from doing this work that uh, the biggest chance that a woman, a survivor, will have at life is being able to connect with a resource, whether that is emergency shelter or a hotline to do some safety planning because it may not be safe for you to leave at a given moment or when you feel like you want to leave. What it also I want to double down on this thought about resources and the resources that you have. We're not just talking about money. We are talking about having a resource, a supportive network, a family member that you feel that you can trust in to tell them one of your deepest, darkest secrets, not just about yourself, but about this person that you love, your partner. And so, if you are a family member or a part of a support system, you think that a friend of yours is in an abusive relationship, it is so important to maintain that person's dignity, to listen to them without judgment, so that they can see you as a resource and they probably will reach out for help when they are ready.
That's such helpful advice. Thank you, Raquel. And it leads to my next question. the idea that for so many people watching, and I've seen it in my timeline, people are asking, like, how did it get to this point? What are some of the warning signs of escalating domestic violence that people often miss or dismiss?
Well, I think I don't know if we miss the signs. Like I said before, when you are in an abusive relationship, you go through a lot and you do a lot in order to hide exactly what is happening. But first and foremost, I want people to understand that it typically happens in a situation with someone that you love. You have already established a connection and a love with this person. But the key characteristic of an abusive relationship is power and control. And that comes in a lot of different forms. It could be physical control, it could be sexual control or sexual violence. An abuser can use the children or connection with the children, threaten to take children away in order to exert control. Financial control. Often abusers will make sure that they maintain all of the finances. They will have finances that the survivor doesn't have access to, and one of the major things that you need in order to leave is what? Resources, financial resources. And then finally, isolation. Isolating the survivor from all of their meaningful connections. That could be family, friends, it could be church. So a lot of times, an abuser will restrict the survivor from attending those things, quite frankly, that bring them joy and connection to the larger community.
No, thank you for that. And think that also helps answer a question. We're seeing an increase in conversation and reports around domestic violence, but also sexual assault and violence, including within intimate relationships. And to your point, a lot of that is about control. So thank you for making that connection for us. I did want to talk about just when we're seeing these instances of domestic violence, we're also seeing gun violence.
Hmm.
And can you talk a bit about how access to firearms changes the risk and outcomes in these situations?
Absolutely. I'll use Ohio as an example. So we collect data statewide, and from 2024 to 2025, we had our highest increase, a 37% increase in fatalities in domestic violence incidents, and 84% of those involved a firearm. And so the numbers don't lie. And these are only the cases that are reported, right? The numbers do not lie. When abusers have access to firearms, it's more likely to escalate to a fatality. So you may have um, a fairly simple circumstance escalate because the abuser is escalating an interaction. In normal circumstances without a firearm, the survivor may be able to de escalate that abuser and leave the home or even stay in the home safely. But once you add a firearm, the statistics show us that that increases not just the risk to the survivor, but the children in the household as well.
No, thank you for that. And one of the things that we're seeing, especially what we saw this recent case in Virginia, that I feel is one of the most misunderstood aspects is why women stay, why it's hard to leave. And you talked a bit just about control and how, control of finances and you need resource to be able to leave. But can you just help unpack a little bit further what survivors are navigating exactly that we're, from the outside looking in, we're like, leave, leave. And obviously it's a lot more complex than that. Can you discuss that a bit as well?
Sure. Every relationship is different, and every survivor has their reasons for staying. But what we see in the work that we do, the top reason why people stay is physical safety. That abuser has threatened, if you leave and I find you, then I'm going to kill you. And so, often to protect their own life, the life of their children, they will stay and endure the abuse until they think that it's safe to leave. And that's why you see people call our hotline and try to safety plan a time where they can safely leave without encountering the abuser. Another reason why a lot of survivors stay is related to that financial control. And lack of access to resources. That's why having resources in the community for survivors, emergency shelter, housing, workforce development. Sometimes they were not able to have a job, make their own money at all. Helping them start over sometimes creates a pathway for them to leave where they don't see one right now. And then finally, especially in the context of a marriage, sometimes the legal system makes it difficult for survivors to leave. And having the background as an attorney myself, I know you need an attorney in order to navigate that system. If you don't have the resources to navigate this sort of complex sense of a protection order and how do I make sure that law enforcement has a copy of it, um, you may feel like you, especially in the context of a marriage, you have no simple way out. And you have a lot of ties to untie in order to leave the marriage.
No, thank you for breaking that down for us. I wanted to move on just to talk about how, we can talk to our audience about supporting survivors. For those who may be experiencing violence, we know someone who is. What does real support look like? How does one seek it? Especially this incident, excuse me, in Virginia hits home because so many people that in our network knew both of them. And, we are seeing our brothers having conversations about Black male mental health, and people are saying, I saw certain things, but I didn't really even know where to start or where to begin. Like, where does one even begin if we want to help someone that we think may be experiencing this?
That's an excellent question. And I alluded to this before. The first thing that is very important for anybody supporting a survivor is to listen. Listen first with no judgment. I think, especially with people that we love, the first thing we want to do is come in and save them. I encourage you all to listen first because that person, one, is trusting you with some, I would say, information that is clouded in shame. They don't want to shame their partner. And so that is really the first step, is to listen without judgment. The second resource that I want to make sure everyone knows about is we have a national network of domestic violence survivor supports. I encourage everyone to visit thehotline.org. It provides resources step by step for anybody supporting a survivor. If a friend has entrusted you with information, it sort of it goes from educating you on what abuse looks like, so you're able to notice the signs, but also if a friend discloses to you, what can you do to provide support and get them in a safe environment, all the way to providing a template for a safety plan, the questions that you may want to ask your friend to help them plan a way out so that they leave with their life intact. Again, that is thehotline.org. And they have a lot of resources that are tailored towards people who are supporting survivors.
Thank you so much for that. And our team will drop that in the chat for everyone. So we appreciate
Perfect.
that. Thank you for that. And, Sunday brunch, it's been a hard week. We tried to uplift and center joy, but this is such an important topic. So we thank you for coming on to discuss it. As we close, I wanted to leave our audience with both some clarity and direction. And just, if anything, what is giving you hope in this moment that about what must change right now so we can all help better protect Black women that are in these scenarios.
Cool. And I admit it is hard to think about the opportunities when tragedies like this happen. I always think about the family members that are impacted on all sides, the children that are impacted on all sides. I think One, if folks educate themselves, I dropped that resource. There's a lot there, a lot of tools that you can use, not just with your close friends, but a coworker where you may notice signs, or a colleague. I think that educating ourselves first, bringing awareness is really important. And then, three, making sure that we maintain resources in this community to support survivors. At YWCA in Cincinnati, we operate an emergency shelter. We operate transitional housing, wraparound case management services for every survivor and child also that comes into our care. A lot of those resources are funded through federal dollars. And so as we see shifts in what that looks like on a federal level, they could be impacted. The amount of those resources could be impacted in the future. And so when I think about opportunities that we have, it is to make sure that we are caring for each other in our own communities, because we may not always have a federal government that believes that women should be protected. And so if that happens, then we have to care for each other, and not just women caring for women, men and families caring for each other as well under those circumstances. And then finally, I just want to lift up the children that are impacted by domestic violence. There are a lot of children that, even if they are not harmed themselves, they witness it. In this particular case, that was my first thought. How do we wrap around resources, um, uh, particularly for these two children and the families that are now taking care of them unexpectedly? That is an opportunity, and we should all be motivated, find joy in making sure that they are able to move forward with their lives in the best way possible without their parents.
No, thank you so much, Rickell, and thank you for mentioning the children. That is such an important thing. And thank you for coming to Sunday Brunch to talk to us about this very, very important issue. We hope to have you back during happier times. But no, this is really, really important for our audience to hear. And we thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for centering this topic. It is so important for us to discuss as a community.
Thank you. Back to you, Glenda.